Hello, everyone. Hi, everybody. Welcome
Hello.
to the Amazing Coaches Corner. And notice there's two of us today. And we want to give a shout out to our other colleagues, Paul and Alicia. And, this is going to be really good, I'm sure. We're continuing our conversation. It is kind of like a conversation
Sure.
about our insight or experience with this amazing book, U Squared, by Price Pritchard. And it's not all about just the information and stories we share. It's really about your growth, your unlimited potential, and you changing things in your life and applying what we're sharing here. I talked yesterday on live, I believe. It's more than just knowledge, right? It's the application and accountability. And that's why mentorship is essential to growth, because doing it on your own is extremely challenging and
Mhm.
frustrating when you don't receive the results that you really want. Trust me, we've both been there. So we're here to help you, and welcome to Coach's Corner. Always feel free to, ask questions live or drop comments after replay. And of course, always feel free to reach out to us. We're friendly people. We love to, we're human beings. This is, we're not AI. We're actually people that want the best for you and the best results for you. And my amazing colleague is glowing over there. Um, so without a long intro,
Further ado.
yeah, I notice I say that a lot, so I thought I'll change it. So my name is Jamel Matias. I'm a certified mindset success coach slash business consultant, trained by the legend Bob Proctor. I'm the founder of Believe in the Unseen Consulting. So it's all about believing in yourself for one, but believing in that goal, that it's there for you, that you can achieve it, that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. And of course, whatever the mind can conceive, and believe, you can achieve. So I also help hardworking but unfulfilled professionals who know they're capable of more, yet they feel stuck like in a cycle without progress or lacking clarity or direction and the positive mental programming needed to create the income and freedom and life they truly desire. So I'm here for you. We're both here for you. I'll pass it on to my awesome colleague over there, Lou.
Thank you, Jamel. Oh, I'm hearing a feedback. Let's see. Anyways, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. And just like Jamel said, we want to send out a shout out to our colleague Paul. I saw on social media that his dive team, they were accepting all kinds of awards. So I just want to acknowledge that and congratulate them. And Alicia, we will see you next week. But my name is Lou Perica, and I too am a success mindset mentor and speaker. And I work and guide growth minded women who many times can be in a state of transition in their life. They feel like there's maybe something more for them, whether that's success, fulfillment, or just alignment in their life. But sometimes something isn't fully clicking. And many times when I speak to them, they may be doing a lot of things and they believe they're doing the right things on the outside, but they're still not seeing the results that they truly want. And that can leave us feeling frustrated, confused, and just really bring on a lot of self doubt. So, what I help them do is understand what's actually driving those results and how our thoughts, our feelings, our interpretations and definitions and patterns are influencing and shaping everything. And once they start to see that, things really start to shift in a real and lasting way in their lives. Um, I am excited to be continuing this phenomenal little tiny book, U Square, with my colleague Jamel. I think you can read it in probably 30 minutes. Not that we recommend that you do that. But what we're doing is just going over each chapter. I think today we're starting with Think Beyond What Common Sense Would Allow. Am I correct, Jamel?
You're correct.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to discussing this. And, and yes, please, if you have comments or questions, make sure you send them to us. We love to talk to our listeners and viewers.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of listeners and viewers, shout out to everybody that's here live with us right now. And, for those that are, it looks like you're on different platforms. So dive in, you know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Lou. Something like this, of this magnitude, just reading a book, we've been conditioned to just read books and put them down and
Mm,
forget what's there. And we kind of, we get motivated and it's like temporary satisfaction. But when you reread something, you're actually awakening something in yourself, that wasn't there before. And just to read a book and put it down, you kind of miss the essence of it. You really do. And when you're developing yourself, it's so important to really allow this material sink into your subconscious. Like really feel this material. It's great to be, have it consciously, but it's totally different when you wake up and you feel it throughout your days. And obviously, well, it's not obvious to many, the outside is a reflection of the inside. So we're talking about thinking beyond what common sense would allow. Common sense. Listen to the first word, common,
I
right?
like that. Yeah.
So in order for you to achieve something that is uncommon to you, do you think common sense will allow you to do so? Right? So there's something beautiful quote, and I don't want to destroy it. I think it's something like here's my attempt. In order for you to achieve things you've never done, you must be able to think differently or something. So the point is, he says most of us can be found flying too close to the ground. Too often, we don't give ourselves permission to soar. Wow.
Mm, I love that. Yeah.
And I just watched an animation with my daughter yesterday. And there's a particular character on this cartoon animation. It was an ostrich playing basketball, right? And the ostrich was lacking self confidence. And the ostrich self image, she she was the first round draft pick, meaning she was one of the top players they wanted in the league. But throughout playing, the ostrich never saw her own value, right? So basically, towards the end of the movie, she ended up flying and she said, I am that bird. And she's flying in the air to basically dunk the ball. It's a cartoon. And we know, in environment, ostriches can't technically fly. This bird is flying on the cartoon. So it reminds me a lot of our thinking. Most of us can be found flying too close to the ground. So we're stuck at this lower level of thinking, and we actually become conditioned to be there pretty much most of our lives unless you reevaluate or even be aware of what you're thinking. And it says too often we don't give ourselves permission. Give your permission to let go of these limiting thoughts. You have to think big and allow it, right? Give yourself permission. And when you do that, you're opening up a whole avenue of your unlimited potential. There's a higher version that's waiting for you to do this. And this is why you attracted Coach's Corner today. I'll let my colleague kind of tag in.
Mm. That well, first of all, I loved your little example about the ostrich and how she is. Was it a he or she?
Is
She.
she? Mm-hmm.
How she defined herself. I am that bird. That is so powerful. She is defining who she is. And I think that was what I took out of that example that you gave me. But I love that. But common sense. First of all, let me go back to about reading. I was one of those who just read a book, and put it down. Most of the books I used to read were fiction, just for entertainment, fluff. But I also, many years ago, I read many personal development books, but most of them were about physical, about my body and my health. And I did take action and I did apply many of the things that they had suggested. But until we met Bob, I never read a book the way that I do now. It just wasn't common sense, like we hear in Thinking into Results, to read a book, 24 times, 124 times. And as we know, Bob read Think and Grow Rich every single day for, I think, 61 years. Now, it's not cover to cover. He may just study one sentence, one paragraph, one chapter. So this is what happens. Like Jamel was saying, it's not just learning the information, but embodying it. So you actually feel a shift in you and you start to evaluate and question your beliefs. So, one of the things about common sense, when I was a kid, that was a big deal to have common sense. I don't know. I just remember my family, mostly my aunt, when I would go visit her. Hey, Maddie. Um, she always mentioned the word common sense. And listening to an adult talk about common sense as a young person, well, I wanted to have a lot of common sense. I wanted her or my adults to be proud of me. I want to do things the way most people with common sense would do. And I never questioned it. So it was not until I started really studying with Bob, but also U Square brought this to my attention. And the common sense that I was gathering was really just passed down. It was almost like having a badge of honor. But it does have its place, but I never questioned it. That common sense for me was other people's concepts, their beliefs, their definitions, their perspectives, their interpretations. And I was downloading all of that from someone else. So I didn't even come up with my own common sense until I got into this material. So what used to be common sense for me is no longer. I've redefined what common sense is now for me, and which is thinking what is possible instead of being realistic. That was actually restricting me, and I like the words that you were using. It's not a lack of our potential. It's really a lack of giving ourselves permission to explore. But this takes, and I'm sure you can agree to this, Jamel, is that it takes a bit of surrender. It takes surrendering to your old beliefs and habits and really have faith in what you are studying and trust the process. Um, that for me was a process of letting go and surrendering. But everything that we've been talking about on Coach's Corner, all our discussions, all our experiences, other people's experiences and results, it just kept telling me this is the right route. This is the right path. And this is why Jamel and I and Paul and Alicia are very passionate about what we bring here. But so here's an example. If somebody wanted to start a business, write a book, maybe do some public speaking, change careers, increase your income. But But instead of asking, what do I really want? Someone may ask, can I realistically do this? Does this really make sense for me to go from A all the way to Z? And that's what Price Pritchett is bringing to our attention, is to think beyond what common sense would allow. And this all, again, brings up the conversations that we're having with our peers, our family members, right? The people that we work with, because they all have their beliefs. And this is why when we talk about what it is that you truly, sometimes it may not be a strong desire, but it's something that you really want to experience. But other people may not think that's realistic. I hear that all the time. Reality, reality. Well, that's your reality. That's not my reality. But I understand that now, and now I can own that. Before I would question, wow, maybe they're right. Maybe reality isn't what I'm thinking. But now I understand, oh, that's just their reality. That's just what they're experiencing. So this is extremely freeing when you can start to embody this and start to think beyond what common sense would allow.
That's so good. That is so good. That is amazing. Um, I'm thinking as you're sharing that, common sense, right, is it's it's really interesting, that term common sense, because Bob is screaming, you have to be totally illogical. Get out
Mm,
of your head. You got to be totally illogical. And I'm thinking about, the Wright brothers, how they made planes fly. They were illogical. I went to the museum there in North Carolina, and I saw the tools they were using to build these parts. They had bike tools. They had taken apart bicycles. They had no idea, but they had a vision. And I don't think they knew that it'll be this big to this day, what they created. They changed
mm,
humanity forever with their illogical thinking, forever,
yeah.
beyond their own presence. So they're no longer here physically, but they left their dream here. And of course it got scaled, right? And a dream can be built on top of a dream and perfected and etc. But and who else? The internet. Like, what in the world? We wouldn't be doing this without the internet. We wouldn't be able to reach countries across the world to have something wirelessly sending our words and our energy and our faces and connecting with people we never met. That's illogical, right? What else? Vehicles, Henry Ford and Walt Disney. There are tremendous stories of people, Bob Proctor, that have done things that common sense would have never done. So for whoever you admire, um, really look at how they let go of their common sense. And it's a great segue. The next sentence that I saw, it said, it's time to start focusing on possibilities. What what's a possibility that you want in your life? Something that's it's there's tons of possibilities. And I like how Lou was sharing reality. My my temperature goes up. I feel the heat when I hear that word.
So does mine,
that's
Jamel.
that's not right. That's not realistic. That's not my reality. What is real? The
Yeah.
subconscious mind doesn't know what's real or make believe. So anything you believe, belief comes first. Anything you believe is true. Really believe. That's why you have to internalize these things. So when I hear somebody say, I got to be realistic, you know what that is? That's old conditioning based on your upbringing and your environment and all those other people that are so-called realistic without the results that they want. And they'll be that way until they stop and allow um, their mind to think differently, right? So Everyone chooses their own path, consciously or unconsciously. You're actually choosing a version of you in this time and space. And you can stay there forever, right? You didn't attract this by accident. Something within you is seeking growth. And that tells you your spirit's ready for change. But you have to listen to it and you have to act on it, by the way. So he says it's time to start focusing on possibilities. So what's possible for you, right? Rather than on limits or obstacles. We put our energy into so many things that is doing us a disservice, right? We're focusing on things that stop us. They even stop our thinking. What is thinking in a proper way? You're using your imagination effectively. Imagine changing your annual income to your monthly income. Imagine changing you running some business or you doing the things you really love to do, right? So use your imagination effectively. And then he goes on to say, making a quantum leap means moving outside your mental boundaries. You can't escape a prison if you don't know that you're in one. You're creating a mental prison in your own mind with your thinking and allowing other people to shoot down your dream and allowing outside results or circumstances dictate what you think and feel. It's a perpetual loop, right? So you can shift it. You can shift it. So he says making a quantum leap means moving outside your mental boundaries. So if you will rethink how you're thinking, can I underline that? I'm starting to market my books now. if you can rethink how you're thinking, so now you're becoming more aware of your thought process. Most people do not do this work, right, Lou? Most people don't do this.
Yeah.
And then they want change, but they don't stop and figure out, why am I thinking this way? Thoughts become things forever, and we become what we think about forever. So why not think effectively? So, and lastly, here he says you can multiply your performance potential, after you rethink your thinking, and you must let your desires guide you, right? So without desire, you don't have direction, and also you'll lack energy, right? You release the energy when you have a desire, and instead of allowing yourself to be boxed in by perceived constraints, and that's you basically. It's perception and using your imagination in a negative way when you have perceived constraints with how you're thinking. So much shared there, right there in the first paragraph. But this
Yeah.
is something for you to inspire you to rethink how you've been thinking your whole life to this point.
Jamel, for the past couple of years when we've been on Coach's Corner, we're saying the same thing over and over and over. A little bit differently here and there, but the same words keep coming up. Belief, your perspective, action, faith, identity or self image. This is what it's all about. You had mentioned desire. And why do we have that emotion or feeling of desire? Why do we have that? Everyone has it. But what is that emotion or feeling? And I interpret it as it's guiding me to what's meant for me. And I think with Jamel, myself, Alicia, Paul, when we came upon this material and realized how powerful this information was, how we watched ourselves change and shift our conversations, our behavior, our beliefs, and not only just ourselves, but other people, right? I mean, millions of people have been impacted by this. we grew this desire. Oh,
I'll be right back. Go
yep,
ahead,
that's
Lou.
okay. We
Hold it
grew
down.
it. That desire just became stronger and stronger. So this is when, for me, I realized this is what I truly want to do. I've experienced other things in my life, but this particular desire, it felt more like a calling. Um, I also liked what Jamel was saying about what's possible, asking yourself what's possible. Now, that's an interesting question. I never asked myself that before. I was just doing. So it's interesting, depending on how you were raised. You know, if you were raised in a family that were big thinkers, big dreamers, and asked you what is possible, this may be normal for you. But if you were raised in a family that had just a lot of common sense, stuck to what's realistic, you may never have even entertained the question, what's possible for me? So I like when you ask yourself that, notice what comes up. How do you feel when you even go out on that ledge and say, what is possible for me? What do I want to experience in this lifetime? Once you narrow down what it is that you truly want to experience, and there can be many, many, many things, but we'd like to focus on one thing at a time as you're shifting. But ask yourself, what is it that I truly want to experience in this life on my journey? And then ask, what kind of growth is necessary for me to experience that? And then once I do experience that, how do I want to contribute to society? I bring this up many times. Our first, I think it was our first Coach's Corner, Jamel, on about goals. Now, sometimes people cringe when they hear that word. Again, whether you call it goals, whether you call it what it is that you truly desire, what it is that you want to experience, what do you love, whatever you want to name that thing, this is why it's so important. And we went over A, B, and C goals because the C type, the one that you've never experienced, never done before, that calls for another version of you, a different version of you. And what it does, I always think of there's many, many layers. There's probably unlimited layers to me, different versions of me. And with each goal that's bigger, it pulls out. Well, this calls for a different version of you, Lou. And when that goal pulls out a different version of me, another level of me, that other level comes with different thinking, different ideas, and different growth. And this is what makes life so exciting and interesting because you're not just the same old, but we get to define who we are. Jamel.
There you go. We get to define who we are,
Yeah.
you know? And that goes right back to that ostrich. I am that bird. I am that bird. She kept
Yeah.
saying that to herself. And that's constant space repetition, right? She's basically defining who she really is, who she's choosing deliberately, creating that version of her by design, not allowing the outside world to shape your own thinking and what you believe yourself to be. So I'm so glad Lou mentioned that because I was going to mention the ABCs of goals, right? It says here that and that it shows how we're so in sync because she took the idea uh, from my consciousness through telepathy and she shared it here before I could mention it. So and did such an amazing job. So it said, so don't limit your desires to what you think you can have, right? Start going after what you want, right? And that's your true desire. A type goals are goals you already know how to do, and B type goals are goals that you think you can do. So, and C type goals are your wants, it's what you really desire. And a lot of people are afraid to even imagine, use their imagination of the life they really want. Like, really go there and find out what you really want in your life. Is it some type of acknowledgement, or increasing income, or money, or material things, or maybe a yacht, I don't know, condo, whatever it is that you want? That's your C type goal, right? And he says this means you give yourself permission to dream. What is dreaming? It's using one of your six intellectual faculties, your imagination. Dreams are built in your conscious mind. So you first have to put a dream there. It's your desire, right? And he says to risk. Oh, now we're getting scared. To risk. Risk and growth go hand in hand. And risk, it requires some type of fear as well. You usually have fear when you take risk. So without a risk, you usually stay stuck just thinking about it, right? And that reminds me of the levels of the terror barrier, right? So the reasoning factor, first there's bondage. You're thinking the same way. You have the same beliefs in your subconscious, and you have the same vibrational state, and you're getting the same results year after year. That's bondage. A lot of people stay stuck there their whole lives. I know you're not going to stay stuck there. So the next is reasoning, right? Reason is when you think of that dream. You're just thinking about it. You're not acting on it. You're not internalizing it. Right? You're thinking of that dream. And of course, your results still stay the same. You're just thinking about it. Maybe some of you are thinking about, hey, maybe this person, Lou, or Coach Jamel, there, maybe they can help me with this, right? Towards my goal. So that's a why idea. You're starting to think about it, but you're not going to act on it, right? So the next level is conflict, right? So conflict is like, basically you have that idea, but your old conditions try to hold you back. So you have an XY vibration in your subconscious, and that creates some type of fear, right? And also anxiety in the body. So, and then on the other side of this fear, you can either move forward or just go right back to your comfort zone and keep watching every episode for God knows how long that you want to watch every episode replay. So, and what Lou likes to call it is the freedom barrier, because breaking through that conditioning is the freedom on the other side that you seek. And I like how that ties into what's shared here. Give yourself permission to dream, to risk. To grow, you're taking some type of risk, right? And you must set yourself free. Listen how freedom barrier and set yourself free. Listen to how they coalesce together. Set yourself free. And you have to set yourself free mentally first. You really do. And it always starts on the inside. And I love this because it starts with your thinking. And he goes on to say a 10 or 20% improvement isn't the idea at all. He said that would represent only incremental gains. That might be an impressive performance in some situations, like if there were unusual obstacles or a difficult setup. But while such a goal might be challenging, it would not represent a quantum leap. We're talking about changing your entire life, what a quantum leap is. And it doesn't require a lot of effort. It actually requires a shift in your thinking and reevaluating your beliefs. So I'll pass it on there because I can go on and on about that.
Um, I remember, I don't know who said it, but imagine if we had a wand in our hand and we poof tapped you on the head and just said, I just gave you 200, 300, 400% more confidence. Poof, how would you feel? Just think about that. Wow, somebody just gifted me more confidence. Think about how you would feel. What would you do? So, how you would feel and the possible actions that you would do, you would take, You're feeling them within you. They're not outside of you. They're all happening. Everything's happening within us. And this is why, again, thinking beyond what common sense. Who would ever think about, oh, I want 400% more confidence? Most people don't think that. But it's possible, isn't it? Sometimes you have to build up your trust in yourself by, like Jamel was saying, taking risks, like Price Pritchett was mentioning, taking some risks, taking chances. And taking the chance, I think it's in Think and Grow Rich about fears, like Jamel had mentioned fears. And I think one of the biggest fears is what our peers might think of us, what our family and friends, what society, especially now with social media, when you put yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there, right? Like we're putting ourselves out there, we're being very vulnerable. And with that, there can be fears, self doubt, but that's kind of common sense because that's what we've been taught. Oh, you're going to be laughed at, or you'll fall down. Why would you take a chance like that? How are you going to do that? I remember Bob would tell stories. Um, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? You know, when you were a kid, you wanted things, right? Whether it was a new bicycle, a piece of candy, whatever it was. And the adult may have just said, well, we can't afford that. But I want it, you know. How are you going to do it? And the kid doesn't know how. The child just knows that they want something, whatever that may be. Maybe they want to be a pilot or a doctor or a farmer or a dancer, whatever it may be. The child only knows that it wants something. And then an adult may question, not all adults, but usually whether it's an adult that it's in your immediate environment or you hear it on a broader thing like maybe TV or radio, right? Someone's questioning the child. Well, how are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to do it? Now the child starts questioning themselves because they don't know how. They just know that they want it. But this starts planting the seed of doubt. This starts planting the seed of playing small, thinking small, thinking logically, thinking realistically, because we didn't know the hows. We just knew we wanted something. But those big old adults, and I was one of them, I'm sure I questioned my kids at times, for sure, but I wouldn't do it today. And if I was talking to a child today, I would just get into their imagination with them and have a conversation with them and maybe ask them how they were going to do it, but in a sense of broadening their imagination, broadening their possibilities of how can I do that instead of limiting it with maybe that tone. Well, how are you going to do that? Right? I'm sure, Jamel, you must have these conversations with Layla. Because you got into this material early, Layla really benefits from it. Remember what Bob would say, if you don't change your habits, you pass them on to your children, right? So Layla is extremely blessed to have parents that have taken the chance to do things differently, perhaps from how they were raised or the environment that they're in. They took a chance and believed and have faith. instead of the common sense route. And I know Layla's benefiting tremendously from it when you share her posts and things like that about what she's doing, what she's achieving, and how she's learning. She knows the stick person, she understands the five senses. It's truly quite amazing. So kudos to you. But I think
Thank
maybe
you.
we should go on to the next suspend disbelief. Want to touch upon that one?
I had a few things to
Oh, okay.
share from this, but
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, that's so powerful, right? Not a lot of people understand the magnitude of that.
Hmm.
What you don't change in yourself, you pass on to your children,
Yeah.
and you're actually perpetuating a cycle, right? Where, we're afraid to use our imagination, our reasoning factor, and all our intellectual faculties, right? Our mental faculties, our will, the power of the will, seeing an image of ourselves, despite all outside circumstances and conditions. So these things are really powerful that aren't really taught to us as human beings. And it's very interesting that it's not, and it's not very out there, right? As far as,
Common.
yeah, right. It's not common, right? And to have extraordinary results in your life, you must be extraordinary, right? Wow. So he said, back to what a quantum leap is, he was saying a quantum leap produces a dramatic and multiple gain, an exponential increase. So quantum leaps are by definition rather astounding, certainly unconventional. Like you can wake up a totally different person. And this starts with your thinking and your belief system. Which version of you are you choosing every day? Right? Are you choosing the same version you've been the entire year so far? Or are you really tapping into what we're sharing? So he says, don't get the idea that absolutely anything you can think of is possible. Very strong statement there. He says it isn't. But in some areas of your life, what lies within your reach is enough to stagger the mind. Bob would say all the time, you have unlimited potential. And I'll second that. You have unlimited potential. You're infinite, infinite. The results you have in your life, your thinking is infinite. And I love when he says, look at all the creatures in the world. They're totally comfortable in their environment.
Mm.
And we as human beings, we're totally out of our environment. And why is that? It's because we create our own environment. And how do we do that? It starts with our thinking. So quantum leaps are by definition rather astounding. So he says you can double your level of success. Double. You can triple it. Far beyond that. You can leverage up your performance to the second or third or fourth power or beyond. True, there are limits, but you don't need to worry about them. Your real limits are far beyond your artificial mental boundaries. That's the part I was getting to.
I love that. Yeah.
So your real limits are far beyond your artificial mental boundaries. So we have these boundaries we create in our mind every day of what our potential is, and basically what we're attracting, what we're manifesting and creating. So where do these boundaries come from? It's usually how we were raised, and we hold on to them, and we become conditioned and comfortable keeping them there for so long, and they become a part of our identity, right? And this happened to me, and I didn't have this growing up, and that's me. And we take this with us forever until we first acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge, where did this come from? Why do I believe that? Right? So these are, I like the wording because it's artificial. It's made up. We created it. And the real limits won't box you in, but the false ones you're carrying around in your mind are a self-imposed prison. This is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Self-imposed prison. So you're boxing yourself in. There is no box. You created it. That's the beauty of it, right? We created these mental prisons. So how do you break out of jail? Through surrender. This is what Lou mentioned. You must surrender to basically your dream, your goal. Surrender to it. Let go and allow your intuition to guide you. I like that. I can read this whole chapter. It says you have to forfeit some of your old beliefs and sacrifice some of those sensible thinking patterns. So forfeit some of your old beliefs. Forfeit. Let it go. Your old beliefs are giving you exactly the same result you have now. So look at your results in any area. You have to change your beliefs if you want to shift those results. So-called common sense can be a curse that puts a ceiling on how far you reach or how high you fly. U square the quantum leap strategy is based on uncommon sense. So this strategy is based on uncommon sense. Uncommon. And there's a select few that this will resonate with. They have a desire to be uncommon, to think uncommon, to achieve things that are uncommon in their circle that they're in right now. And that's what I was saying. It's not by accident when you think like that. It's spirit seeking expression to and through you. It has to come through you. So quantum leaps are uncommon sense. That's a post. That's so good. So yeah, let's go with suspend this disbelief, because I'm sure at this point people are like, oh, I can increase my income 4 times and this and that. No way I can do that. So I'm sure there's disbelief now.
Mm. All right. So suspend disbelief. So the first line is act as if your success is for certain. Most carry along imposter syndrome. When I first got into this material, we'd get on these group calls and um, with Bob, and many of the consultants, well, I shouldn't say many, every now and then, let me reword that. Every now and then, consultants would be saying, but I don't feel, I feel like I'm an imposter. I feel like an imposter. So you have to act as if our success is for certain. When you can believe that, allow yourself to believe that it is for certain. Notice the difference on how you feel. You feel a little bit more relaxed, but that imposter syndrome, that noisy roommate keeps saying, what are you, crazy? You've never done this. Why are you acting like that? This is why having faith and trust in the process of what we're sharing, we've been sharing this for 2 years, and we're not the first. This information goes back thousands and thousands of years, but um, Price Pritchett has condensed it in this little tiny book of U Square. Instead of holding back because you don't have hard proof that you can make a quantum leap, see if you end up with evidence proving that you can't. Just make the jump. Act as if your success is guaranteed and then see which set of ideas you should believe in. Because each belief will come with its own set of ideas. I love that. And it says here if you must doubt something, doubt your limits. I think the majority of society, and Jamel, you may agree with this, really we're trained to think negatively, to see the lack and scarcity. in the world instead of the abundance in things. And we start to believe this is the way it is. I often think about children, how children are dreamers and adults become warriors, right? When you and I heard Earl Nightingale talk about this. So think about when you're a child and you're playing whatever, fireman or astronaut or whatever it is that you're playing, and your imagination is just going wild. It's so much fun. And then you go to school and now you start to learn. And as we're growing, we're taking that magnificent, miraculous gift, the imagination, and we're starting to hear get real, stop fantasizing, get your head out of the clouds, pay attention to me, listen to what I'm saying, right? See me, watch me. So we're little by little being pulled away from our imagination that will benefit us, and we start using it against us, thinking of the worst, right? We're starting to use the imagination and using it against us. But you still have some hope, right? As you go through school, college, whatever, you're going to start a career. You still have some hope that you can be or do or have something, some sort of a life that you desire. And if you're not seeing what it is that you want, usually, and this is where Earl Nightingale came in, around the age 30, give or take, you start to accept what you've always heard. Get a job, pay your bills, look for benefits in your job, and you've suspended the imagination. And now we fall into line of what society is expecting of us, of what we believe society. And usually around the age 30, you've kind of given up. When I think about myself, I think around the age, I think I had my son at the age of 30. So I, looking back, did I use my imagination a lot? No. I was so caught up in raising a family, getting dinner on the table, going to work and whatnot. I didn't use my imagination for many years. Again, the way that we speak about using our imagination to really grow ourselves. And I think it's when I became an empty nester, when I was able to, have more time for myself because my kids went on their own. And I started to understand this material, learn about this material, and reactivate my imagination. But for 30, maybe 20 years, give or take, in between, I was too busy raising a family. And I wasn't using my imagination the way it was gifted to me. I was using it in states of fear and doubt, lack and scarcity, because that's how I was conditioned and programmed. Right? Because when you think about it, since we're children, we're gathering information through our five senses. And all of that is being recorded. So, depending on the environment that you were raised in, the type of books that you read, the TV that you watched, the radio station or songs that you listened to, all this outside information was being recorded and helped shaping and defining you. And you mentioned something, Jamel, how people talk about their past, so they keep reliving it. I went to something a couple of weeks ago, and we were sitting in a circle, and the instructor wanted us all to go around in the circle, introduce ourselves, and tell everyone why we were there. And I think I was like third or fourth. And I heard the first person and I went, uh-oh, uh-oh. Then I heard the second person, oh, because how they have defined themselves, even though we were all like 30 and up, I would say 30, 40 years old and up. Those beliefs of how we've defined ourselves, how we were raised, what happened to us in our past, they're still carrying it with them. It's still defining who they are, and therefore those results keep showing up in their life because it's being filtered through those lenses of how they see themselves and how they define themselves. So it's very important of how do we see ourselves? How do we define ourselves? And how are we showing up? And this is why what do you want? What do you want to experience? Because if you truly want a life of joy, whatever, freedom, financial freedom, et cetera, loving relationships, we need to redefine our what's happened in the past and redefine and create what it is that you truly want.
Yeah. Wow. You said so much there. That's good. No, in a great way, because it's so vital to understand what you're sharing here. That is so good, Lou. Um, there's so much here in this. You're, of course, a lot of people are skeptical, right? How can I change my life? And we're sharing, deeply here how you can do that. And it says your skepticism, which you presume is based on rational thinking and an objective assessment of factual data about yourself, is rooted in mental junk.
Mhm.
It's rooted in mental garbage. So your doubts are not the product of accurate thinking. So you're not thinking accurately when you're doubting. And here comes Bob again. He says, doubt and worry are psychic diseases. They're psychological disease that you're
Mhm.
allowing to perpetuate. Doubt is the culprit, right? So let's get an understanding. He says, but habitual thinking, right? So your doubts are not the product of accurate thinking, but habitual thinking. Your doubts are not the product of accurate thinking, but it's a habitual way you've been thinking.
Mm.
You're getting used to doubting yourself. How
Yeah,
dark is that?
yeah. It's familiar, right? Very familiar.
Right. It's familiar territory. Years ago, you accepted flawed conclusions as correct. Years ago, began to live your life as if those warped ideas about your potential were true and seized the bold experiment in living that brought you many breakthrough behaviors as a child. This is what Lou was talking about. Now it's time for you to find that faith you had in yourself before. You had it, but you allowed doubt to kind of become very familiar in your life, which is, you know, disheartening, but that's why you're here. So if you want to be skeptical of some ideas that truly deserve to be called into question, challenge the thoughts and belief that have argued against your taking a quantum leap, that have argued against your taking a quantum leap. Put those old inhibiting ideas to the test by going forward with everything you've got. You're not going to move with doubt. And if you're moving with doubt, you're you're not even moving in your full potential. So he says, for right now, just suspend disbelief. Suspend it,
Mm.
right? Just let it go. You don't have to be convinced that you can succeed in making a quantum leap, but don't keep on believing those old ideas you've been carrying around about your personal limits. So he's breaking it down here. Whatever about quantum leaps. He says, don't continue believing those old ideas you've been carrying around about your personal limits. That's such a powerful statement. I've seen people walk around with these limitations. So if it will make it easier, hold off for a while on believing anything. Just act like you have complete faith. Just act. Merely do what you do if you knew you were going to succeed. That's awareness. Behave like you have total conviction. This is where Neville talks about righteousness and sin. Total conviction is righteousness. I know Spirit is always working with me. So he says, doubt is what does the most damage. Doubt is what does the most damage. So don't give it any mental space. Proceed boldly as if it is completely inconceivable that you will experience anything other than a successful quantum leap. If you must doubt something, doubt your limits.
Mm-hmm.
He's screaming at you at the end of that. There's very strong words here. He's going there. So don't give doubt any mental space. Start today, because what happens, your awareness of yourself grows the more you do this work on yourself. Lou and I, we have doubts. We're human, but the goal is to be aware of it and suspend it, and then shift your thinking to what your faith, that it's by law. Quantum leaps, it's by law. It's uncommon. You have to have uncommon sense.
Yeah.
Actually, totally be irrational. So, if you've been stuck for a while here, doubting and worrying and getting the same results, I hope this episode or this session really helped you kind of see yourself more, because we actually did get through 2 chapters here, and it was they're both highly powerful. Lou, anything you want to share there? I think
I
yeah.
was just like, when we say suspend belief, I was thinking, when I do this meditation, and probably many people have experienced this, you're meditating and then these thoughts come in. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I remember I was listening to Muji. I don't know if you're familiar with Muji. Love him. Anyways, he says, when they come in, just put them on a shelf. Just, okay. It's almost like taking your shoes off when you go into, I know when I was growing up, we had to take our shoes off before going into the house. So suspend your disbelief. Just put it aside for now. If you want to pick it up later, go for it. But for now, put it to the side and see what's possible. And if you want to pick it back up, you can. But you're going to notice, the more you put your disbelief to the side, it's waiting there for you if you want it. But notice when you just mentally put it to the side and allow what's possible to come into you, the ideas, your intuition, just see. And notice how good that feels. Your disbelief will be here on the shelf, should you want to pick it up. But for now, just leave it there and discover what is possible for you. And I just wanted to add this one little thing. I used to listen to Joel Osteen, because the last line here says, so don't give it any mental space, or one of the last lines.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to Joel Osteen, and he would talk about negative thoughts, fear, doubt, and all of those tenants. He called them tenants, renting mental space. And I remember when I first started getting into it more and more, I remember going to sleep at night, and when I would put my head to the pillow, I literally thought of the tenants of fear, doubt, negative idea of thoughts falling out of my ear. Like I thought by putting my head to the side, those tenants that were, I was renting space to them. I wasn't even collecting anything financial. I was just giving them free rent. And I thought, oh, and I'll tell you, that really did help. It, honest to God, it did. I just imagined that coming out of my ear and never coming back. So that was my little tip. I remember listening to Joel Osteen telling me about it. I was like, geez, I have these tenants. I'm giving them mental space in my head. And I never thought about releasing them. I just thought they were there. Never thought about really releasing them. So I know what I share, many people can relate to. That's why I feel very open to speak about things like that, what I've experienced and what do I experience now. Because I think I can say the same for you too, Jamel, is we were down a different path. Not saying it was bad or wrong, it was just a different path. And now we are choosing, or we've chosen a new path that benefits us greatly, not just ourselves, but our family as well.
Lovely. I love it. Amazing. You know, don't let this just be information. Reach out to one of us. We're here to help you and apply this knowledge. But most importantly, help you create whatever it is that you want in your life and improve your life in some type of way. And that was such a vivid example Lou shared about tenants falling out of her ear. It's so powerful. Um, just let those negative beliefs go, that disbelief go as well. And, the belief will create the fact. Believe, in what you want. Believe that you have the ability to, because once the belief's there, that's the starting point.
Mm.
So, believe, and the belief will create the fact. And reach out to one of us. We'll love to help you today or tomorrow, or when your spirit allows you to let go of your limiting self. We'll see you next session, everybody. Have a great one.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you for joining us.